When you hear the name Porsche, what comes to mind? For most of us, it's sleek sports cars, incredible German engineering, and a long, storied history of winning races. But the story of the man who gave that brand its name, Ferdinand Porsche, well, it's a whole lot more complicated than just automotive genius. It's a story of incredible innovation that got tangled up with one of the darkest chapters in all of human history.
Now, this quote here, it's from Ferdinand's son, Ferry, and it really captures that creative spark, right? The very spirit we associate with Porsche. If you can't find what you want, build it yourself. But to really, truly understand the Porsche we know and love today, we have to go back to the father. His story is, well, it's a journey from visionary engineering to a deeply troubling collaboration, right at the heart of the 20th century. Ferdinand Porsche was, by all accounts, an absolute prodigy. From young age, he was just obsessed with electricity and mechanics, and his ambition was, let's say, pretty obvious to everyone. His rise in the brand new world of the automobile was nothing short of meteoric. I mean, just look at this timeline. He starts at an electrical company, and just a few years later, he's designing cars. Then he becomes chief designer at huge firms like Austro-Daimler and Daimler-Benz. And by 1931, he decides, you know what, I'm going to start my own thing. This guy was a rising star for sure. And this is where you really see how far ahead of the curve he was. In 1901, I'm going to say that again, 1901, he developed the world's first working gasoline-electric hybrid car. Just think about that for a second. That's over 100 years before the Toyota Prius made hybrids a household name. He'd already cracked the code. It's just a stunning piece of visionary work.
So there's no question that Porsche's talent and his ambition were off the charts. But in the 1930s, that ambition led him to a fateful project, a commission where his genius would intersect with immense political power, and it would end up defining his legacy forever.
And this really brings us to the central question of this whole explainer. What happens when a genius collaborates with a totalitarian regime? This is where the story takes a really dark and very complicated turn. Okay, so it's 1934. Adolf Hitler has this grand vision for Germany. He wants to motorize the entire nation. He wants a people's car, a Volkswagen, that would be affordable for every single family. So he needed an engineer to make it happen. And who did he turn to? Ferdinand Porsche. For Porsche, this was the commission of a lifetime, the ultimate project.
This number on the screen, 5,643,287, that was Ferdinand Porsche's Nazi Party member number. And let's be crystal clear here, this wasn't some kind of passive relationship. He actively joined the party in 1937. He later accepted an honorary rank in the SS. He became deeply, deeply integrated into the Third Reich's power structure.
The promise of the people's car was so powerful, but the reality was a complete and total deception. The Volkswagen was a lie. Hundreds of thousands of German citizens paid into a savings program, but their money was just funneled away. The factory that was built for their cars was instead used to build Hitler's war machine. So, with the start of World War II, Porsche's role completely shifted. He was no longer just a car designer. He became one of the most important engineers for the entire German military.
His designs were absolutely critical to the German military. We're talking about everything from the Kubelwagen, which was kind of their version of the Jeep, all the way to these monstrous experimental super heavy tanks like the Maus. He even contributed to the engine design for the V-1 flying bomb. His talent was now fully dedicated to the war effort. And this work, it came at a horrific human cost. His factories, like so many in Germany at the time, used forced labor. Thousands of workers, many from Poland and the Soviet Union, were forced to build his designs. That letter P on their uniforms was a constant chilling reminder of where they were from, not who they worked for. After the war, Porsche's entire world just collapsed. He was arrested, imprisoned as a war criminal. And you might think, well, that's the end of the story. But actually, it was in this moment of total ruin that the seeds of the Porsche brand we know today were actually planted.
So while his father was locked away in prison, it was his son, Ferry Porsche, who took charge. And get this, working out of an old sawmill in Austria, using leftover Volkswagen parts because that's all they had, he designed the Porsche 356. This was the car he wanted to drive. And it was the true birth of Porsche, the sports car company. An absolute legend was born. So, how does this incredibly successful, global, beloved brand reconcile its origins? The legacy of Ferdinand Porsche is something the company and honestly the rest of us are still grappling with today.
Okay, first, let's just acknowledge the obvious. The company is a massive success. The little company started in a sawmill is now a global powerhouse. But what's really interesting here is that its best-selling models aren't even sports cars anymore. It's the SUVs, the Cayenne and the Macan. Together, they make up nearly 60% of all Porsches made. Who would have guessed? But the company's founding has an even darker side. One of the original co-founders was a Jewish businessman named Adolf Rosenberger. His 10% stake was forcibly taken from him under the Nazi policy of Aryanization. He was pushed out, and Porsche and his son-in-law basically got his shares for a fraction of what they were actually worth. And if you think this is all just ancient history, it's not. As recently as 2022, cities are still reevaluating how to remember Ferdinand Porsche. The renaming of Porsche Road in Linz, Austria, shows that communities are actively debating his legacy and his central role in the Nazi regime right now. So this is the essential duality of Ferdinand Porsche. It's two sides of the same coin. On one side, you have this brilliant innovator, the guy who gave us the first hybrid, the Beetle, the foundation for the legendary 911. On the other side, you have a willing participant in a horrific regime, a man who used forced labor and profited from the persecution of his own partner. Both are true, and both are part of his story. And this leaves us with a really difficult question. When we admire the car, do we also have to confront the legacy of its creator? How do we separate the genius of the engineering from the moral compromises of the engineer? It's a question that goes way beyond just cars, doesn't it? It forces us to think about how we remember history itself.